Today we're going to talk about the importance of Oswald Spengler. He's known as a German historian, a philosopher of history, but in my opinion, his contributions go way beyond that of history. He's not your average historian that simply describes what happens or tries to give a direction and meaning to historic facts. Quite the opposite. He, in my take, is a person that brings a lot of light to what's happening right now. He has a prophetic talent in some of his writings, especially that of Men and Techniques, which is a book that we will analyze soon in other videos. So, why is he so important? Well, he's best known for his book, The Decline of the West, and of course, he really was a genius in that book. However, what most people don't know about him is the book that I mentioned, Men and Techniques. And in describing what techniques is and the importance for our current world. And in doing so, he explains the workings of the Faustian man, which it's really dangerous to talk about this on YouTube and in any other mainstream social network because it has a very negative association with extremist political movements, let's put it like that, so that I'm not banned from YouTube after just 2 videos. But I think that's a really misreading of his role. He is an intellectual. He's not someone that is trying to bring an ideology to the world. Quite the opposite. Would you say that Friedrich Nietzsche is someone that is trying to bring an ideology? Of course not. The same goes with many other intellectuals and philosophers that lived in the past. Spengler is not trying to necessarily make a political movement with his writings. Of course, he might have been involved with some weird stuff, but his analysis should be the most important thing that we extract both from his biography and his writings. And in doing so, we can understand what is happening to, in a way, modern industrial society in a very, very poetic way. That's what's so beautiful about Spengler's writing, is that he doesn't describe anything as a scientist would, as a modern scientist. And that's the reason why a lot of academics that lectures in universities such as Harvard and other schools like that, well, they can't interpret Spengler the way they should. Because Spengler is not to be taken literally for every word he writes. He's not to be taken as someone that describes the past as a factual experience. He brings a lot of energy. He brings a lot of life to some of his writings. Sometimes he also puts a little bit of desperation and a little bit of even nihilism, although he's not a promoter of that. But in doing so, he has a poetic quality that it gives an appeal to a broad interpretation of what reality is at his time, but what will happen in the future. And when we see the concept of the Faustian man, well, it has a very strong poetic element to it, and so forth. And even with techniques and his writing with Men and Techniques, well, in one of the parts of his books, he talks about the rise and the end of the machine culture. Again, he doesn't describe in very precise terms what will happen, what is happening, but in a slightly poetic way, he brings us the description of what we're facing right now. Right now, okay? And that's why he's so important. In a language that is mildly poetic and open to a broad interpretation, we can understand many things that are happening right now using his texts. And unfortunately, most people just discredit him for his weird associations with some political movements, or worse, because they think that Spengler is not the academic that would lecture on Harvard and so forth, right? That's a very shallow way of looking at a genius such as Spengler was. And so that's the first part that I would like to bring to you. The next videos, we're going to analyze his book, Men and Techniques, a contribution to a philosophy of life.